Thank you to TokyoTreat for sponsoring today's video. Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So it has been a little bit since I've done another reference sheet for one of my OCs. I believe the last one we did together was of my OC Moriko, which I have right here, but I did film the other versions for my other reference sheets for my previous OCs as well. But today I thought it'd be nice to actually start one for my OC Sato. So for the format, we are going to be doing it similar to my sketch pages. So I want to have kind of like a headshot in the middle, a waist up version, a few little doodles alongside with a full size chibi. Then I'll have another page with a full body version of her outfit alongside with some other whatever kind of little doodles or drawings that I want to do to accompany her little sketch page. So I like to do sketch pages for my reference sheets more recently versus doing like a very clean, polished one, just because I can always add new little sketch pages to replace or to just accompany if I ever want to send these to a person or an artist that I want to commission in the future, or just for my own future reference. I kind of have it all contained kind of in one, but have like supplementary material for like maybe more about their personality, or if I do a bunch of different hairstyles or something, I could also loop those in and it kind of looks all consistent in a way. So similar to my other ones that I did for my other OCs, I am using the same background color, which is more of a like a manila-ish tan color. And then I will be placing a white grid in the background just to give it a little bit less of that empty feeling. But to kind of start off, I want to do kind of like a close-up of the character's face. So if you're not familiar with my OC Sato, she's the one that has kind of like longer pink hair with kind of like the turquoise eyes. And she's often seen with Akemi, which is her boyfriend, and then sometimes I draw her with Moriko, which is her best friend. So in terms of like how I ended up making Sato, I'll give you like a brief rundown and then I'll get more into her character probably in the later half of the video once we start to do coloring and rendering. But for now, since we're just doing the sketching portion and it's pretty straightforward for these, I want to talk a little bit more about Sato. So the initial idea when I first made her was actually I drew her for like a draw this in your style post, which I'll post right here. And this is like during the time when I was starting to get used to working in Procreate. So I was still doing more of like a painterly approach, but I didn't really find like a method that worked with me or like find brushes that I really like to work with. So it definitely has a different feeling to it compared to like my other drawings or like how I draw right now. So design-wise and the basis of her character is kind of similar in a sense to my OC Masaki, who's like my main OC. So if I was ever to make like a comic or something, it most likely would revolve around his story. And how Sato relates is that she's actually Masaki's cousin. So they do share the same last name, so it's going to be Masaki's father's sibling is kind of like one of Sato's parents, if that makes sense. Because how I always have it is that Masaki's father has a brother. Like, I don't know if it's going to be younger or older at this point. So it'll be Masaki's uncle is the father of Sato. So they do share the same last name as Masaki, but she is 3 years younger. So Masaki is currently 21 in kind of like the story where they're set. So Sato is 18. She's just finished high school and she's working kind of like part-time, full-time-ish at her parents' confectionery store. So she does a lot of baking, a lot of sweets making, all that stuff. But my main reason of wanting to have Sato as a character at the time was that because of, I think right after high school, actually it was during high school, I believe, up until a good portion of like university, probably well after university as well, I drew mostly males because I did a lot of like Infinite fan art, which is like a K-pop group. I did sometimes do Lovely fan art or like Lovely's fan art, which is a K-pop girl group. But at the time, I did more like realism, semi-realism at that time. But once I switched over to doing more like 17 fan art and all that stuff, I drew mostly males. So I had a large gap where I did not draw a lot of females at all. So I did not have a female OC at the time. So kind of like timeline wise, from middle school, so probably grade 7 to grade 12-ish, up until probably my first year of uni, I had the same set of OCs, and there was about 12 of them. And I had mostly girls instead of like males, I think. But then after a certain point, I dropped all of my OCs, including like my old persona and stuff. But at some point, I wanted to have OCs again because it's always fun to have your own original characters that you can doodle and just like mess around with. But before I talk more about her origin story, I guess, let's go ahead and finish up this part of the sheet and move on to our second sheet. Actually, before we start with the next sketch page's sketches, let me introduce to you to TokyoTreat. TokyoTreat is a fun, exclusive Japanese snack box featuring unique and exclusive flavors straight from Japan. Each box is filled with a variety of full-size Japanese snack items like limited edition Kit Kats, unique flavored Japanese chips, and occasional Japanese sodas that are only available in Japan for a limited time. The box comes with a 24-page cultural guide, and I love that it includes information regarding ingredients and allergens for each of the snacks, but also informs you of little tidbits of information revolving around culture and traditions in Japan. Each month has a different theme for their box, and for the month of December is the Very Merry Snack Miss, which has snacks revolving around the holiday and Christmas time. I think it's kind of cute that a lot of the snacks have a very holiday-themed name, such as the Winter Wonder Waffle Chip, which I really love, and try saying that 3 times fast. But I really love the snack. It has like a nice crunch, but also an awesome sour cream and onion taste, which is one of my favorite flavors, but also the snowy chocolate crepe Kit Kats and even the Yuletide yakisoba, which I think are so cute. These will definitely last the winter holidays, so I'll definitely be trying them out for the rest of the holiday season, and you can too. So if you would like to get yourself a box for yourself or want to give them as a lovely gift to family or friends, then do check out the link in the description and get your box today. Thank you again to TokyoTreat for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to drawing Sato. So now that we are back into our sketching, I am going to make a new canvas, same dimension, same color for the background, and I will put down the white grid once we are ready to do the coloring phase. But this sheet, I tend to make the kind of like full body of my character so that we have kind of like a static version of what their outfit actually looks like. I do like including the full version of a chibi on the first page, just in case if I only want to send one reference. Technically, the full outfit is on their chibi version alongside with like a close-up of their face, usually like a half body and a few little extra doodles, whatever I think suits them. I might go back in and actually tweak up and add some other drawings to Sato's page because hers became a little bit more sparse compared to the rest where I had a significant amount of overlap for the characters. So I might mess around with the little formats and stuff of it afterwards. So probably today's session is not going to be like the full reflection of what her reference sheet is actually going to look like. But after I have the full body, let's do a few more like headshots. I think one more waist up, and I think another chibi is included in this one. And then I think that will conclude our sketching portion. Then we can move on to rough colors and then a bit of rendering to kind of spruce things up and make things look a little bit more polished. But back to talking about I guess like we were talking about Masaki at first. So Masaki kind of came about from wanting to have OCs once again, but also the fact that I was really determined to draw more plants and flowers because that was a big focus of mine during my BFA. So during my BFA, I drew a lot of like foliage and patterning and all that stuff for a good portion of like, I guess just my main focus that I include into like portraiture and all that stuff for my final. So I got more interested in learning more about flowers and wanting to draw more foliage and just like, you know, plants in general. So I decided to make an OC that would be more associated with flowers and foliage. So Masaki came about. He's a florist and his design pretty much is still the same, but there's like small tweaks to his color palette, which leads me into Sato because one, I wanted a female character to draw because I stopped drawing as many females and I thought she would push me to draw females again, which I guess didn't really happen all too much, and she is unfortunately one of the characters I draw the least, probably because I don't really like her hairstyle technically. I think I'm warming up to it now, but I often draw her with like different hairstyles. I often put into braids or buns or leave it like down. But I think with the introduction of Moriko with her, I've been drawing her a little bit more here and there, so hopefully that'll give me that little push. But for Sato, her colors are kind of derived from Masaki because I've always loved the combination of a cool color and a warm color together, and more specifically kind of like a mint and kind of like a peach color, or like a navy and a blue, or like a navy and a red, or any derivative of that. So Sato's is kind of similar to Masaki's, where his hair is kind of on the warmer side, so I made hers on the warmer side. Her complementary kind of like color or accent color is kind of a navy-ish color with a little bit tinge of more green rather than like purple, which is more similar to Masaki. And then I think Masaki's sweater color is technically Sato's eye color. So I did want them to have some similarities because they are technically related. And the reason why I made them cousins is that my brain at the time, I was not wanting to have any of my characters to be shipped with one another. So, and I know there's not really a way to prevent shipping, but a lot of my characters I think were like basically made in a way that it was just trying to prevent that in some sort of way. So either like the age gap is way too big, or the relationship is because they're family. That's basically what I had initially. Later on, I do end up just making a significant other for Sato, just because Akemi just filled in that spot, and I think they're just cute together. And yeah, I think that's mostly the reason why I made Sato. In terms of like the reason why she ended up being more associated with sweets and like all that stuff, I always determined that Masaki would have like a sweet tooth, and I was always thinking like, oh, maybe like why would he have a sweet tooth, and maybe he hung out with Sato a lot when he was growing up, so you know, she always bakes for him and makes sweets, or he was kind of like low-key the guinea pig or the tester for anything that she made that was new. So I liked her being associated with sweets and like, you know, baked goods, like anything like that. And her name, I believe when I was searching it up, I believe it means sugar. So that is the reason why her name is Sato. And I don't know, I always loved drawing her with more like pastel-ish kind of colors, or like anything that's very soft. So I always associate that a lot of the times with like desserts and stuff, or like at least desserts that I find attractive. But in terms of the process right now, I ended up putting the grid in the background with just a white, and I used the default grid brush that Procreate comes with. I adjusted the size to be whatever I wanted it to be. Then after that, we went ahead and filled in our flat with our kind of selection tool with the color fill option on. And then after that, we went ahead and alpha locked it so that every color that we put on to our flats can kind of remain in those shapes so they don't bleed out, and everything can kind of be more contained and a little bit cleaner. But then after that, I ended up putting a little bit of the skin tone on, realized I did not change my line art to be set to multiply alongside with being just a softer color. So we did that afterwards, and we can start to actually color everything in. So for the most part for these, I do put majority of my energy into the first page. The subsequent pages are going to be up to my discretion, I guess, but for the most part, they are still gonna be somewhat rough, because the whole reason why I wanted to do my reference sheets kind of like more or less in my sketch page style or format is because the whole idea for reference sheets kind of makes me feel like the way I draw them, they don't seem like natural to me, or like I hate the idea of just doing like a front, a side, full body, and then like, you know, a block of text or something like that. I know what works for some people. I prefer having just like a bunch of images of the character themselves. And I know I did some formatting a little bit better than others, and I do want to add a little bit more to Sato's here and there because I think there are some gaps that I could fix and kind of fill out. But for the most part, I think it conveys a lot of the information that I want to of the character. And usually when I send these for like commissions and stuff, if they require a blurb or something about the character, I'll just write it out and send it to them rather than keeping it on the actual sheet. The sheets is like mostly purely visual for the most part, along with their name or like their actual color palette and stuff, hopefully is consistent through it. So it's just my approach that I want to do for reference sheets in the future. And I just like seeing like a bunch of drawings of the same character all together. I think it's just kind of neat and kind of fun. So that's kind of like my reasoning. You can definitely do the reference sheets like in whichever way or style or format that you want to do that you think best fits and portrays your character. So yeah, just do whatever you feel is most comfortable. Kind of more backstory. Sato, Moriko, and Akemi are all the same age. Actually, I think Moriko is like 1 year older technically, but she's just like a few months older. She's not like, I guess like year-wise, she's the same age. It's just she's older by a few months compared to Akemi and Sato. So she is 19, Akemi and Sato are 18, and they all attended the same high school. So that's kind of like where they all met. And then Sato and Akemi started dating in their senior year. So that is kind of like the timeline that I have set out for them. And I was gonna think whether or not I was gonna talk more about Masaki's story, because technically, Masaki does not live in the same city or town as the rest of my characters until he starts to go to post-secondary. So yeah, maybe I'll do another video talking a little bit more about that, or maybe we can do like a very brief, small introduction to potentially a story that I wanted to make of them. I think I've talked about this before, but like on my very old iPod Touch, I actually have like a weird, not like a script, but it's kind of like an outline of Masaki's story and how he came about to, I guess, like work at the current flower shop that he works at, which is owned by Koji's grandparents. So I think if I can relocate that kind of like little blurb of everything, maybe I'll turn it into like a mini comic, and then you guys might have a better idea of what kind of potential story would kind of take place in terms of like Masaki's comic. I don't know. I'm still a little bit hesitant, probably because I don't have a lot of details set in stone per se, and maybe I just need to take more time to write it out. But maybe at some point I'll like do a mini comic or something like that digitally, and then you guys can have like an intro to it. But for now, I think that's it for Sato in terms of like background information. I guess like personality wise, I didn't really talk about it. Both my girls are definitely more of like confident, not very shy. But out of the two, Sato is more like fiery and low-key will fight you if you hurt the people around her kind of thing. Moriko is a little bit more like golden retriever, happy, a little bit like hyper. She's very outgoing. I do think Sato is outgoing as well, but she's just not as energetic, I guess, compared to Moriko. Definitely compared to a lot of my other OCs, she's definitely seems a little bit more low-key, but she definitely has more of a temper, I guess. And I have drawn her more angry in some doodles and stuff here and there, which I think a lot of people don't either notice or haven't seen, just because I don't do it too often. But she's definitely like, you know, if you're a pretty crappy customer at her storefront or something like that, she will not hesitate to call you out. Or if you're like, I guess like bullying or being mean to somebody, she'll fight you, Loki. So yeah, I think you'll see it a little bit in the second sketch page that I do. I think I have drawn her holding, I think, a rolling pin in kind of like a threatening way. So yeah, she is a little bit more, you know, fiery, tempered-ish kind of person. But if you're on her good side, she's like 100% loves you, will fight for you, that type of person. Versus, I think, Moriko, she's definitely more happy-go-lucky, but probably has a higher chance of becoming more like sad if you're sad, that type of person. While like Sato might be the type to try to fix the problem. Well, Moriko's a little bit more empathetic, I guess, in that sense. It's kind of how I see their dynamic. So they definitely are a little bit more of like a rambunctious, boisterous kind of duo. They're very loud. Where I guess like the flip side, Masaki and Kaisen are definitely more on the low-key side. So out of Masaki and Kaisen, Masaki would be more animated, a little bit more cheerful, happy, versus Kaisen, who's definitely more stoic. But I guess like temper-wise, Kaisen would have a temper technically. He would probably get easily annoyed or like easily bothered, while Masaki is very much like the caring type. He's very happy, very, I don't know, he's like a little ball of sunshine, but he's more introverted and not like super outgoing, very in your face or anything like that, which I think sometimes Moriko and Sato might be a little bit. But if you have any questions about like any of my OCs, feel free to add them in the comments and I'll definitely try my best to reply to them if I can. As for the process for our little sketch pages, we are on the second one, and I mentioned earlier that I will not be including a lot of footage from this one just because to keep this video short and a little bit more digestible, it was easier for me to show most of the process on the first page because I will end up putting a lot more detail and a little bit more effort into those ones versus the second page. But I needed to keep our colors consistent, and I've noticed about this both in Ibis Paint and in Procreate that if you use the reference tool and you color pick, I don't think the colors are 100% accurate. I think in Procreate they're slightly muddy, and I think in actually Ibis Paint might have the same problem where it's a little bit more dull. So I like to paste in the colors from I guess like our chibi version because they have like the full body of all the colors that I need to use to keep everything consistent. And I decided to use that and paste it back into our second page so that I can color pick back in and fill in our full body. I can then delete the chibi version and color the rest of the page based off of the colors that I've already picked off. So after that, I ended up just going ahead, clipping out majority of the footage of me finishing up the second page, and went ahead and started to put the white border, which I don't think I included into the first page in terms of footage. So for all of my sketch pages or sketches, to kind of help them differentiate themselves from one another and from the background, I do like adding a white border around all the drawings, kind of like separately. That way they don't get melded together too much here and there. So yeah, I just using the sketch brush, set it to white and do a little border around everything on a layer above all the other layers that I have placed down. So this is kind of the look of our second page. Like I said, I might go back in and try to rearrange some stuff so that it feels a little bit more filled in because hers feels a little bit more sparse. But hopefully you guys learned a little bit more about my OC Sato. And like I mentioned, if you have any questions about any of my OCs, I will try my best to reply in the comments. But I think that is it for today's video, and hopefully you guys enjoyed watching me draw a Sato for today's little sketch page reference sheet, which means all we have left is my OC Koji, and hopefully that'll be for another time. So I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!